This is downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as it looked in the early 1930s. That's the Marquette University campus in the background. Here in the yard of an average urban dwelling of the era, within walking distance of downtown proper, a sanitation official demonstrates for the housewife and for the motion picture camera the latest prescribed methods for the disposal of garbage. Coupled with rationalization and the promise of the New Deal, this menial effort was, at the time, deemed sufficient to forestall a fervently predicted stagnation of the spreading American metropolis. And here, another urban dwelling, likewise within walking distance of downtown, and another housewife, equally concerned with neatness in her daily chores. But this is 1966. On all sides, a giant struggles to raise itself from an abyss of the outworn, working incessantly, the tempo of a shrill and pulsating new heartbeat spawned of the national necessity called urban renewal. Incongruous man-trap of monstrous dimensions, Frank Lloyd Wright called it, enormity, devouring manhood, confusing personality by frustration of individuality, the Moloch that knows no God but more. On the other hand, Delaware University's Dr. Edward Higbee says that this is for people who want to enjoy the great variety of opportunities which only this can offer. Diversity of people and of things to do is the compensation of the city. Two contrasting opinions of what has ironically become the challenging new American frontier, downtown USA. But on one point, both of these men and nearly every other recognized authority on the subject are in full accord. Time and complacence have inflicted here a brutal wound. New York Mayor John Lindsay says that the remainder of the 1960s will be adventurous years in America. For in their span, we shall do much to decide whether major cities will rise proudly at the center or disintegrate at the core. The people of Milwaukee, Wisconsin have very definite ideas about their core, their downtown, and what must be done with it and for it. If the viability of the city itself is to be sustained, they feel, this is where the surgery must begin. For such, they have designed programs, introduced proposals, initiated projects, and of course, run into problems, all of which we intend to explore as National Educational Television presents Local Issue, to save a city. In the mist, the city of Milwaukee, a massive lady that's been nestled here on the bank of Lake Michigan for more than 120 years. Chicago is about 90 miles to the south, Green Bay about 90 miles to the north. And for over 1.5 million people, this is home. And this is the lady's face, her downtown. From the bottom, from the top, from the river, and from the roof. This face at one time was also the body of an entire entity called the city. Now the body has grown immense.
Southeastern Wisconsin, in common with other metropolitan areas in the United States, is undergoing an unprecedented population growth and urbanization. Southeastern Wisconsin is the fourth fastest growing region in the United States. It contains the 12th largest city in the nation.
Out of all proportion to the features of the face.
Well, I think our downtown area needs a lot of redevelopment. I've been in a lot of other big cities around the United States, and I've noticed that they've done a lot more in this area than this city has. I think Milwaukee's about 10, 15 years behind the times.
And she's finding the struggle back to prominence a painful process.
Now that we have run into this period of demolishing a good deal of that which had become blighted and old and ramshackled, we wind up with cleaned up, gaping areas of parking stations. And unfortunately, I find today, as I look over the city and fly over it almost daily, we suddenly have nothing but parking lots and very little to come down to park for.
In salvaging this core, where a population once pointed proudly and said, "Look, world, that is the face of our city," Paul Spurgeon says, no generation of architects at any time in history has had as promising and inspiring an opportunity, and no generation of Americans ever had so great a responsibility.
In my opinion, it is essential that a community have a strong central area. This adds to the character of the community. This is where the visitor evaluates and notes what goes on in the community.
We should have a more interesting city pattern caused by elements of surprise in our buildings, elements of delight of all sorts in our landscaping and our pattern of the city. More harmonious silhouette of buildings as we look up at them, and as the person on the street walks about, he should have this beautiful element of silhouette before him in the tall structures. And we should have interesting texture and pattern. We should have freshness in our buildings and in our city.
I feel that in our overall long-range planning, one word comes very much into focus again, and that word will have to be precaution. And by precaution, I mean this. Milwaukee does have some real old flavor or architectural ambience which could and should be preserved, as Baroque as it may be. It is not a purely neutral city of the mid-century or something of that nature with a bland overall look of sameness.
I think that downtown is vital to any successful urban renewal program, not only in Milwaukee but in the entire United States. And although downtown has lost some of its retailing strength, and this is coming back too now, nevertheless it has still remained the center not only of the city but of the metropolitan area. So as a place to start, you have to have a good-looking downtown if you're going to think in terms of rebuilding all of your city.
Personally, I would hate to see a standardized type of building constructed here following a particular Victorian or Williamsburg or whatever the pattern may be. But on the other hand, as I say, we've had some rather unfortunate examples of where we've had incompatibility of structures improperly sited. The height is not compatible. And it seems to me that the municipality or the people as a whole do have an interest as to what happens to the downtown area. And to this extent, they should have some role to play in trying to guide people and new development in this particular area.
Our society will never be great until our cities are great. These are the words of President Lyndon Johnson, spoken in the height of America's current urban crisis. But some years ago, in the height of America's Industrial Revolution, an inventor named Henry Ford made a proclamation that has since become closely related. "I will build a motor car for the great multitude," he said, "so low in price that no man will be unable to own one and enjoy with his family the blessing of hours of pleasure in God's great open spaces." And in 1966, American cities have yet to subdue the cumbersome paralysis and deformity left in the wake of Mr. Ford's ingenuity. Of equal significance is the fact that those who profited most from what the automobile could bring into downtown, the industry, the people, the revenue, soon discovered that the same facility made it possible for them to live further and further away from that downtown and away from the congested, noisy snarl of motorization. Urban sprawl was born. Subdivisions, shopping centers, suburbia. Downtown residences and eventually business areas were left to those who could least afford their maintenance. The resultant depreciation and blight burrowed into and enveloped the city. Then began a subtle but rapid encroachment into the surrounding areas. We must seriously consider what Fred Vigman stated in his 1955 publication, Crisis of the Cities. The great suburbs, where the absentee classes live, will coalesce into the cultural, social units of the future. Already, ever larger segments of suburbia have less reason to come into the city. Stores, social centers, and the like follow the line of the greater wealth on the periphery of the city. And then we must wonder not only if, but how downtown, and in turn the city as a whole, is to survive.
I consider Milwaukee's community renewal program the #1 achievement of this city. The program gives us an organized attack on our problems of redevelopment and our problems of blight. The whole idea is to draw the blight line out here and to have a number of staged projects on a definite set of priorities to attack blight in this city and to eventually stop blight completely from encroaching ever outward into our good neighborhoods, and to at the same time remove and upgrade our poorest neighborhoods.
Downtown Milwaukee will continue to have a very important place in the future growth and development of the entire metropolitan area, as it has in the past. Perhaps this role will change in the future. We have seen some indications of change already. However, there are certain aspects that are provided in the downtown area in a way that cannot be provided in any other location.
Probably some of them are traditional and some are historical. But I think the downtown as we know it now is going to be and is in developing, at least here in Milwaukee, into the educational, the cultural, and the business center of this urban community.
The center of the city is an excellent place for the various elements of government, state, county, and city, to have their headquarters.
Everyone comes to downtown, everybody, regardless of economic status or where they live, whether it's suburbia or the inner city. There's a certain excitement about different kind of people having an anonymity and meeting in the downtown, doing the various things that they have to do. There's nothing more exciting for people and people watching, and downtown is the best place for this kind of excitement.
That the downtown area should be saved because the downtown area, if anything, is representative of the life of the city. Now, the downtown area now does offer some entertainment. However, the only thing it does offer is movies, and there's little in the way of real theater and real music. And I think some of this should be brought in.
I think we've got to go all out to increase our convention business, because this is a very important and integral factor to the retailer, the restaurateur, the theater owner, and just about everybody that does business in the area. And I think we need to bring in a new industry. And I think some of the things we're doing now will do it. We want to bring in the tourists. Hundreds of thousands of people visit Wisconsin and the Great Lakes north of us each summer. And we're statistically sure that most of these tourists bypass downtown Milwaukee.
We're talking about hopefully redeveloping the Milwaukee River with a promenade, with fine restaurants, and with places where people would wish to come. This ties in with the music hall. The idea of a music hall, on which ground has recently broken, is not only to have a place for the performing arts, but for people to enjoy themselves. And having come to see a play or to hear a concert, that there are other things that they can do before they go home and say, well, let's call it an evening. And to this end, we certainly hope that the Milwaukee River will offer some possibilities.
There is a great deficiency in most cities today of the lack of water-oriented recreational resources, and we have one of the finest in our Lake Michigan, and we should exploit it to every extent possible.
All of this is geared to the idea that people must be brought into the downtown area. Where you have people, you have business. And where you have business, you have money spent and money earned. And this, of course, is the lifeblood of the city's economy and of any trading center.
Vigman's dismal prediction for the city was based almost entirely on the premise that with an urban population principally proletarian, increasingly dominated by immigrants and almost totally lacking the resources of those economically capable of escaping to the suburbs, the city's potential for maintenance and rehabilitation could only become less and less over the years. In that respect, his prophecy couldn't have been more accurate. Probably no public official in the country has moved with more dispatch or more bravado in grasping the situation and alerting the public to its ominous implications than Milwaukee's Mayor, Henry W. Meyer.
The central city itself is the beginning point for the metropolitan area, but many of its wealthier citizens, or most of its wealthier citizens, have left the central city, and with them has gone...
Recently, at the United States Conference of Mayors held in Dallas, he successfully initiated the acceptance and adoption